Tapology dropped to top 25 and the comments are already lying to themselves. Because greatest is 3 different crowns: skill, legacy, and danger. So I'm going bottom to top. Each fighter gets 2 lines: why they're immortal and what keeps them off the throne. By the end, we'll see who actually earns it. Starting at number 25, BJ Penn, the wild genius. He's great because he was doing modern MMA before modern MMA existed. Not the greatest because brilliance without consistency doesn't own the era. Number 24, Henry Cejudo, the gold collector. Great because he proved elite carries across divisions and rule sets. Not the greatest because the story has gaps and the reins didn't breathe long enough. Number 23, Randy Couture, the blueprint. Great because he taught the sport what champion grit looks like. Not the greatest because the game evolved past the template he built. Number 22, Conor McGregor, the attention sniper. Great because he changed the economy of fighting and broke minds before fists. Not the greatest because the peak was a flare, not a dynasty. Number 21, Matt Hughes, the farm strength king. Great because he made control look like a religion. Not the greatest because later eras solved that pressure with better angles and layers. Number 20, Dominic Cruz, the glitch. Great because his footwork was an unsolved math problem. Not the greatest because the injuries stole the volume a GOAT needs. Number 19, Charles Oliveira, the submission storm. Great because he weaponized chaos and made panic look technical. Not the greatest because being the best finisher isn't the same as owning time. Number 18, Alexander Pantoja, the drowning specialist. Great because he turns every round into deep waters and keeps breathing. Not the greatest because the division's all-time story is thicker than his resume. Number 17, Fedor Emelianenko, the quiet apocalypse. Great because he was unstoppable in an era where heavyweights were monsters. Not the greatest because the timeline debates never end and eras matter. Number 16, Israel Adesanya, the mirror assassin. Great because he made distance a weapon and turned reads into highlights. Not the greatest because greatness needs unbroken control, not just moments of art. Number 15, Max Holloway, the volume tyrant. Great because he can drown elite fighters with pace and precision. Not the greatest because being the hardest guy to beat isn't the same as being the king of history. Number 14, Alex Pereira, the left hook myth. Great because he can end a career with one geometry mistake. Not the greatest because the all-time throne doesn't get built on speed runs. Number 13, Stipe Miocic, the heavyweight reality check. Great because he beat the best big men in the most dangerous division. Not the greatest because heavyweight history is short reigns and messy math. Number 12, Kamaru Usman, the chain operator. Great because he weaponized discipline and broke contenders with process. Not the greatest because the ending chapters shifted the aura. Number 11, Ilia Topuria, the clean killer. Great because he's the rare mix of precision, power, and cold timing. Not the greatest because all time is a time argument and his clock just started. Number 10, Merab Dvalishvili, the pace virus. Great because he infects rounds and wins with volume pressure nobody can match. Not the greatest because greatness isn't just output, it's dominance over generations. Number 9, Jose Aldo, the king of sprawl. Great because he ruled an era and made leg kicks feel like gunshots. Not the greatest because the sport moved and the crown changed hands. Number 8, Khabib Nurmagomedov, the locked door. Great because he solved elite fighters like puzzles and never lost a round in spirit. Not the greatest because the reign was perfect but short. Number 7, Anderson Silva, the Matrix. Great because he made world-class fighters look confused in slow motion. Not the greatest because greatness needs more than magic, it needs mileage. Number 6, Daniel Cormier, the human clamp. Great because he could drag greatness into his world and win. Not the greatest because the era had a shadow he couldn't step out of. Number 5, Alexander Volkanovski, the small giant. Great because he proved IQ plus pressure beats size and hype. Not the greatest because the late losses complicate the legend. Number 4, John Jones, the cheat code. Great because his skill set is the wildest weapon tree ever built. Not the greatest because the off-cage chaos stains the greatest label for a lot of people. Number 3, Demetrius Johnson, the perfect machine. Great because he did everything at an elite level with 0 holes. Not the greatest because the division and visibility arguments always follow him. Number 2, Islam Makhachev, the system upgrade. Great because he's the most complete version of that Dagestani engine. Not the greatest because you can't crown all time while the story is still being written. And at number 1, George St. Pierre, the balanced emperor. Great because he ruled with control, adaptation, and clean championship math. But he's still not the greatest because greatest depends on what you worship. dominance, time, or danger. So I'm not asking who your favorite is, I'm asking who survives the GOAT test. Drop your number one and tell me which crown you're ranking, skill, legacy, or danger. And if you want my full framework, get the codex at spiralcombat.com.